Hey there, Houston. I'm meteorologist Erika Lopez here in the KHOU Weather Center and talking about another weather classroom. So thanks for tuning in. We've had these weather classrooms every single day during the work week. It's been so much fun covering a lot of topics in meteorology, trying to make it, just a little bit more entertaining for you guys. I know everyone's at home from school, but it's important to continue learning. So first things first, before I get into our weather lesson, I want to ask you guys two things. First, comment below. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And also, throughout this weather school, if you guys have any questions, you guys can comment below and ask them also, and I'll be able to hopefully answer those questions for you guys. So today's weather classroom is all about hail. So we're going to talk about hail, how it forms, and also some of the dangers of hail, and also want to clarify the difference of hail, sleet, graupel, if that's a term you haven't heard either, because sometimes people get confused at the difference of hail versus sleet. So I'll chat about that. But as for now, let's start with the basics. So in order for hail to form, what we need is a cumulus cloud at first, but at that we need a cumulonimbus cloud. So whenever you add the word nimbus to the end of a cloud name, it means it has the possibility of rain. So nimbus in Latin stands for rain. So this is a towering cumulonimbus cloud. Notice it's already producing some lightning, like producing some rain. The taller this storm is, the stronger it is, and could potentially be severe. This one storm can produce everything, okay? Let's just pretend this is a severe warning storm. Lightning, heavy rain, it has the possibility of producing a tornado, and also the updraft is so large that it has the possibility of producing hail as well. So every single storm has an updraft, and then every single storm has a downdraft, okay? So whatever goes up is going to come down. That includes rain. This updraft, what it is, are very, very strong winds as strong as 100 miles an hour shooting up into this cloud. Could be even stronger than that. The taller this cloud is, the stronger it is, the larger the hail it can produce, okay? And then that hail will come down the downdraft. So let's back up a little bit. Whatever is going up is going to come down, and we're going to start with a water molecule. So a little raindrop that's in this cloud that could eventually grow to be a hailstone. So let's start with molecules. Water molecules in this storm. Let's pretend it's collecting several molecules, shooting it up in the updraft. The taller that storm is, the colder it is at the top of the storm, right? The higher you go, the colder it gets. Once we get past the freezing point, which is in the tropopause of the atmosphere, so this storm could grow as tall as 60,000 feet in the atmosphere, which is 2 times the height of what airplanes fly up in the sky. Could be even taller than that. And the colder it is up there, so once that molecule makes it to that freezing point, it turns into ice, right? And then the stronger that updraft is, the bigger and bigger that ice ball, which is the hailstone, starts to accumulate more moisture. It freezes, and the larger it gets, right? But once it gets so big enough for the updraft not to be able to sustain it, then that ball of ice is going to fall, which is what we see on the ground as hailstones. So it kind of lets you know, right? The stronger and taller the storm, the bigger the hail is going to be. The smaller the storm, the updraft's not as strong, so the hail won't be as large. Okay, hopefully that made sense. Again, if you guys have any questions, comment below and we'll answer that later. So a weaker storm can produce penny-sized hail. Penny-sized hail, we like to measure our hail and kind of make it a little personable for you guys to visually know and visually know exactly what type of hail we're talking about. So penny-sized hail is one of our smaller size hail. You've probably seen some of it and we'll likely see some of it later this season. We also measure a quarter-size hail, which is up to almost an inch. $half size hail, that's closer to an inch and a quarter or so. Golf ball size hail is something else that we talk about. Now we're getting into the damaging type of hail territory. Believe it or not, there have been hail as large as a pool ball, which is about just over 2 inches in diameter. Check this out, baseball size hail. So you're probably wondering, how large can hail grow to be, right? What is the largest size hail that we've seen? Well, this is an interesting fact, okay? It's a little mind-boggling. The largest hailstone that has ever been recorded, 8 inches in diameter. 8 inches, right? So half a foot is about this big. 8 inches about that big in diameter. So that means if you were to wrap a tape measure or kind of measure the whole circumference of it, 18 inches. Does anyone play volleyball? It's almost the size of a volleyball if you were to hold a volleyball. We're talking that being the largest hailstone that was ever recorded in 2010. July of 2010 in Vivian, South Dakota. So South Dakota is one of the areas that does pick up some very, very severe storms. This particular day, we had a lot of moisture to work with, very unstable atmosphere, several tornadoes reported in this area, several storms that had large hail, and this hailstone was not solo. There were a ton of hailstones that were as large as 7 inches and close to 8 inches, but the largest that was officially recorded by the National Weather Service was 8 inches in diameter, weighed almost 2 pounds. So imagine how tall that thunderstorm had to be to sustain a hailstone as heavy as 2 pounds before it was too big and had to drop to the ground, and imagine how much damage that could cause. So that's why hail is very fascinating, but it's also very dangerous also. The old record was 7 inches in Nebraska, so shattered that record by 1 inch, and that was set in 2003. So here's the picture for the proof coming out from the National Weather Service of the largest hailstone ever recorded, and they have the measuring tape to prove it. Pretty gnarly hailstone, right? So there they are wrapping the tape measure around it, 18 inches in diameter. They put it in the freezer to make sure to preserve it so that it didn't melt, so they can have proof and be able to take all the pictures, right? Okay, so when that hailstone fell to the ground, this is the damage that it caused on the ground. Made a dent, almost like a crater in the ground that was almost a foot wide. So imagine if that was ground, but there's also photos from that day from decks, vehicles. That's why hail is very damaging and very dangerous. So let's talk about a scenario that happened in Texas. All right, we had in North Texas, this was a few years ago, golf ball size hail. Nothing compared to the size of the 8-inch size diameter hail that was recorded in South Dakota. But here's a look at the damage that it caused in North Texas. This is a police vehicle with its windows shattered because of golf ball size hail. So if we had that 8-inch size hail fall on this vehicle, it's likely going to be totaled. And it happens a lot here in Texas, across the country, whenever we're talking about severe weather, which is why it's very, very important whenever meteorologists are on TV and we're also talking about severe storms. If we say there's a severe thunderstorm warning in your neighborhood, this is the reason why it's very, very important to make sure you're just paying attention to the weather, but also listening to any warnings that are out there. Okay, something else that is damaged a lot, especially here in Texas, are crops. So with hail, businesses lose a lot of money. Damage is happening to buildings, to vehicles, to whatever structures, but also to crops. So that's something that we don't think about very often, but we can talk about millions of dollars worth of damage because of a hailstorm, one single hailstorm. And unfortunately, that was what was associated with that same storm that caused lots of damage to police vehicles in North Texas. So let's talk about safety with hail, okay? So to stay safe during a hailstorm, whether you're at home or you're in the vehicle, let's start with at home, okay? First things first, you're likely getting some alerts on your phone, which is why we always say it's important to have the KHOU app on your phone. You get weather alerts there, and you're alerted whenever there's a severe thunderstorm warning. So go indoors immediately whenever there's a severe thunderstorm warning. Also, if time allows, You want to cover your windows with whatever you can, whether there's drapes, if there's blinds, because that hail also can do damage to your windows. And if we're talking about you, say in your living room, with a severe thunderstorm warning and it is likely to produce severe size hail, that can shatter your windows. Shattered glass, not fun to step on, to be close by, very, very dangerous. So make sure to stay away from windows if you're at home. That's really the main key when you're within your house. When we're talking about tornado warnings, that's a different scenario, but this is for a severe thunderstorm warning or tornado warnings that have the possibility of producing some large hail. So some folks, say you're on the road, you're caught driving and there's a severe storm. Well, first of all, you want to stay in your vehicle. Any protection you can, especially from your head, is very, very important. So you want to stay in your car, slow down, pull over, stop in a safe location if you possibly can. But if you can't, just stay in your vehicle. That's the best practice. Also, turn your back to your windows or cover yourself with a blanket, a coat, spare clothing. I know it sounds a little absurd probably, but when we're talking about golf ball size hail that can shatter vehicle windows, when we're talking about the possibility of 8 inches in diameter, that could be deadly. So that's why kind of important to listen to those safety tips there. Okay, I believe this is my last slide before I get to any questions from you guys. And I want to talk about the difference of hail and sleet. In particular, because me as a meteorologist, when we're in the winter season, we have folks who give us storm reports, which we appreciate all of your storm reports. We need your eyes, your ears to let us know what's going on in your neighborhood. And then a lot of people say we're in the middle of January, it's hailing at my house. And so I wanted to talk about the difference of hail and sleet. We'll also talk about graupel just a little bit because it actually forms very differently. So when we're in the winter season, we're likely seeing sleet. And here's the reason why. The difference is how they are produced, how they're created. Hail is created within thunderstorms. So we need a towering cumulus cloud, which most of those severe storms can only be produced during severe weather season, when we have a lot of heat in the summer, in the fall. We don't really get those extreme severe storms that produce large damaging hail in the winter. It could happen, especially here in Houston, because we don't get as cold as other places. So we need that cloud image that I showed you. I'll pop it up again. With a very strong updraft. Remember, in the updraft, that's where the hail is created, okay? But sleet is not created in a storm. Sleet is created from the rain that's falling from this storm, and sleet is rain that freezes, okay? So now we can have, I'm going to go back to this image, depending on how strong that storm is, we can have hail as small as sleet, but we likely can't have any sleet that's as big as large hail, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Usually sleet is as big as 5 millimeters in diameter. That would be pea-size hail that we're talking about, but sleet can never get as large as 1 inch size diameter or plus of a hailstone, because remember, these are just water droplets. Water droplets are very, very small compared to how large a hailstone can occur because of a strong updraft. Okay, graupel, if you haven't heard of the word graupel, this is another frozen precipitation, but it also could look like hail sometimes. Graupel, basically what it is, it was a snow flake which melted, then froze again, so it has this ice coating layer on it, which is why graupel actually looks more like Dippin' Dots when it's a more whitish color interior of that pellet, and then it has an ice coating around it. So if you ever see graupel, it looks a lot more white versus this is more icy. You can kind of see more through it because of the fact that it's an ice pellet. Okay, so hopefully that clarifies a little bit the difference between hail and sleet. Remember, hail can be as small as sleet pellets, but sleet can never be as big as ice pellets because of how it's created. They're both created differently. Sleet is more of a winter precipitation type of ice pellet that we get on the ground, and hail is associated with strong severe storms, which severe weather season it's around the corner. All right, so any questions that have been coming in or any shout outs I can give?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question. Let's see where we go. One second. From Suzanne asking if hail can happen during a tornado.
Good question. Okay, so Suzanne's asking if hail can happen during a tornado. So this is pretty intense because this one storm can produce a tornado and hail at the same time. As a matter of fact, the tornado, that's a good sign if we're seeing hail. That same storm can produce a tornado. Now, you will get the tornado being produced on a different side of the storm, but that is correct. That same storm can produce both.
Okay. Nikki wants to know if it can hail and snow at the same time.
Oh, good question, Nikki. So Nikki wants to know if it can hail and snow at the same time. So this is a reason why I wanted to talk about hail and a little bit about winter precipitation because it could be a little bit confusing. So Nikki, hopefully I answered that earlier. I'll just kind of recap a little bit. Hail is associated with convective storms, which normally are associated with a lot of heat and stability in the atmosphere, and those temperatures at the surface are likely way too warm for snow to be produced because we need freezing temperatures at the surface. But we do have freezing temperatures at the top of that storm, which is why hail is allowed to be formed. But at the ground, we need the temperatures be at freezing or colder in order to see snow. So to answer your question, the answer is no.
Okay. Preston wants to know if hail can change the outside temperature.
Preston wants to know if hail can change the outside temperature. Good question. And the answer is yes, because it's the same scenario with the rain-cooled air. It might be very small, the temperature change with it, but whether we're talking about rain, whether we're talking about hail, especially because of the cloud in general, the cloud coverage, not allowing sunlight to push through. So all of those little scenarios can change temperatures, whether it's drastically or very minuscule. So you will see a little bit of a temperature drop associated under that storm, say compared to maybe a few miles down the road where we're not talking about a towering cumulus cloud.
Okay. And Christopher in the fourth grade wants to know if the temperature can change sleet to hail.
Okay, so the question, and who asked the question?
Christopher.
Christopher asks if the temperature
Yeah,
can change
sleet
sleet to hail. Okay, so he wants to know if sleet can be converted to hail. Good question. So sleet, remember, sleet is created. I'm going to try to bring my big cloud graphic again. So the question is, can sleet be converted to hail? Sleet is created below the storm cloud. So we would need a really strong updraft to kick that up. That's not going to happen. So sleet will automatically fall to the ground and you're going to see ice pellets. Hail is created within the storm. So hopefully, the answer is no. It doesn't convert to one another because they're created in different scenarios. Hopefully I answered that okay.
And then JB wants to know what season does graupel usually fall?
JB wants to know what season does graupel usually fall. So if you're tuning in and you're wondering what's graupel, that's such a weird term, never heard of it before. Graupel is normally around the winter season. So we need to deal with winter precipitation because remember graupel begins as a snowflake. So at the surface we need temperatures to be at freezing or below freezing, and then it partially melts and then refreezes, which is why we have a snowflake with basically a coating of ice around it.
Okay, and then we've got time for a couple more questions. Aaron wants to know if graupel is heavy.
Ooh, good question. So I would say it's a little more dense because of the fact that it was a snowflake at first with a coating of ice around it, but it is very minuscule. Think of Dippin' Dots. Do you guys love Dippin' Dots? I love Dippin' Dots, and they're just fun to eat. They're pretty much the size of Dippin' Dots, so they're pretty small. Cannot grow as large as hail whatsoever.
Okay, and then let's see. How about our last question from Renee? I'm sorry, I'm from Lillian. From Lillian in the fourth grade. Can it hail during a hurricane?
Can it hail during a hurricane? Likely not going to see hail during a hurricane. And the reason for that is because we need very, very tall storms. Believe it or not, we don't get that with hurricanes. So we need towering cumulus clouds. We get a lot of rain. We could get some brief spin-ups, some brief tornadoes associated with hurricanes, but we normally do not see hail within hurricane season or within hurricanes.
Okay. And then
Oh, hey, David, just doing, just taking over.
and we've got one more just from Nicole. The biggest hail ever recorded. I think you had this one earlier.
Yeah, I knew you guys would ask about that. So for those of you guys that are tuning in, a question is always, how big can hail get? And I love to talk about the biggest hailstone that was ever recorded. So biggest hailstone that was ever recorded, this is a picture for proof. It was 8 inches in diameter, recorded in Vivian, South Dakota 10 years ago. So pretty impressive. If you were to wrap a tape measure around it, then it was up to 18 inches. So that causes major damage. In that same storm, there were so many hailstones that recorded up to 7 inches in diameter, really caused some damage. And a question before was, can we have tornadoes with hail at the same time? Same storm did produce tornadoes.
Okay. And that looks like about it. We've covered the size, and we've covered the conditions.
Yeah.
That's about it. Yep.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun. Those are really great questions. Very impressed with you guys. David Paul is actually getting ready for tomorrow's weather school. Do we have a topic yet?
I haven't decided. Lightning? Probably lightning.
Okay, he's saying probably lightning.
Maybe the Coriolis force.
Ooh, maybe the Coriolis force. I know there's so many topics, and we get excited about talking about all of them. So you'll just have to tune in tomorrow and see what he's going to talk about. Either or. Either way, it's going to be an awesome lesson. So he's prepping for that. We're prepping for the newscast coming up at 4, 5, 6, and 10. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go out and impress your, your family in your house. Maybe do some FaceTime and impress your friends on FaceTime. Let them know what you learned today on weather school, and also let them know to tune in tomorrow. David Paul will be teaching the weather class. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.